Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Payrolling. My name is Matt Vady, and I'm excited to take you on this journey. I had a great conversation with Matt Umholtz. Matt is the CEO and founder of Paysphere out of Houston, Texas. They have been in business 8 years this month, 8 years in July of 2020. And they have twice been on the Inc. 5000. They've been voted best places to work in Houston. They actually took in first place in Houston in 2017. Matt spent over 8 years at a Fortune 1000 payroll company. And this conversation was fantastic. And we covered a lot of things, pretty much all related to sales. So we were talking about both Matt and I's background. We come from Fortune 1000 payroll and HR companies, and we both have deep history in sales. So this was a fun one. We got into processes, we got into technique, we got into what we're doing to sell in a post-COVID world. I think you're really going to enjoy it, and I hope you do. Today's episode was brought to us by Guru. That's GUHROO.co. Guru provides white label human resources and payroll software for payroll bureaus. Use Guru to grow your client base by using easy to roll out and implement software. We use it. It's fantastic. One of the main things behind it was the fact that it's so much easier to use than other platforms we'd used in the past. So highly recommend checking it out. It's GUHROO.co. That's guru.co. And thank you so much. Here's today's episode.
Welcome to Payrolling, the show where you will learn how to operate and grow your payroll business from the most dynamic minds in the business. If your company offers payroll services, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Matt Vady. Let's go.
Are you tired of dealing with payroll? Would you just like to finally get out of this industry and start focusing on what you actually do best, whether you're a CPA, healthcare broker, whatever your core discipline is? You started offering payroll services because you thought it would be a great value add. And then you quickly realized, well, this is consuming way more time for not enough money than I originally thought. Did you know that we are actively acquiring payroll books of business? We would love to work with you to identify if we can help you to partner with the right group that makes sense for an exit for you, but creates consistency in how you continue to treat your clients. If you're interested in learning more about Guru's acquisition services, simply go to guru.co/acquisitions. That's GUHROO.co/acquisitions. Welcome everybody to Payroll, and my name is Matt Vady, and I am joined today by Matt Umholtz from Paysphere out of Houston, Texas, and we are going to be talking about selling in the COVID era. And I'm super excited to be joined by Matt. How are you doing today, Matt?
Hey, I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks so much for having me, and excited to be on the first episode.
Yeah, well, I'm excited too. We were just talking about how we're going to have to redo one here in a few weeks once we figure out how to properly talk on camera and on podcast and all that. So what we're hoping to do today is talk a little bit to Matt about his success in sales at his organization, some of the things that they're seeing that have changed since we've gone into this COVID area and where there might be some opportunities. But Matt, why don't you bring us up to speed on the background on you and the company? You obviously mentioned a lot about you in the intro, but tell us a little bit about where you are and how you got there.
So I started my career back, goodness, man, I don't know, 17 years ago now, which, man, it just seems like yesterday I sold my first payroll, but started at one of the big national providers, spent 8 years there in a sales and sales leadership role, had an opportunity to leave and start my own company 8 years ago, and literally from the ground up built Paysphere to what we are today. And as you mentioned in the intro, a couple of Inc. 5000 visits and best companies to work for, and really just have loved building a team that cares about our customers and is there to help us continue to build what we love.
That's awesome, man. And congratulations on all the success. So I've loved watching it. I've loved getting to know you. I think this is a huge
Yeah.
thing for a lot of folks out there. Is I was thinking about it. You and I met at the IPPA conference in person for the first time after we'd known each other for several years last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And so for those of you out there that don't know other people that own payroll companies, obviously that's one of the big things we're talking about here is how to grow your payroll business. Make sure you're reaching out to people. Matt and I just kind of connected on LinkedIn, got conversations going. I've got to know each other very well over the years. So appreciate the friendship and all of your mentorship and the things you've shared with us over the years. So tell us a little bit more about the sales organization. You guys have any niches? Is there a specific target market you guys go after?
Yeah. So when we built the company, we started really in the small business world. When you're building a company from scratch, it's difficult to go out and sell a 1,000-man company when you have 3 customers, right? So back in the early days, we were really just trying to leverage those CPA relationships and relationships that we had in the market. I was coming out of a big national provider, so I obviously had an 18-month non-compete. I couldn't go after any relationships, nor would I, just ethically. So we started with that really small business niche market, and we built that pretty quickly to the 500 customer mark. And when we got there, we really started rethinking the future of the company and moved more into the mid-market / major account space. That's always been my love and passion. I just love that there are a lot of problems to solve in a mid-market provider. And I felt that we could differentiate and provide customers that are in that space just a little bit different than what was in the market at that point in time. So we kind of made that transition, and through that, you find that you compete very well in a few things. I mean, for us, we love manufacturers that are doing sophisticated timekeeping, job costing, general ledger integration to ERP systems. We feel like we bring expertise to the table to help companies of that nature. We also have a pretty strong niche in the healthcare space. Again, because of timekeeping, shift differentials, and we feel like we know that space quite well. We've got private member-owned country club niche. We just fell into that and seemed to do it really well. So we just went out and started calling other private member-owned country clubs and telling them, what we did for their other ones. And then outside of that, I mean, we're a traditional provider, so we have all the company verticals you could ever think of under our roof, and we're relatively diversified from a client standpoint, but that's because we get a lot of referrals from partners. So you can't really control a vertical very well when partners are saying, "Hey, can you help my customer?" So we're pretty diversified in that realm, and we've got everything from a small law office type customer. We still have small businesses we serve, to multi-location, fertility clinics. You name it. I mean, it's we're in Texas, so we obviously have some oil and gas manufacturing, E&P type companies. But fairly diversified, which right now in this world is a good thing.
Yeah, no kidding. And you touched on a couple of really important things in there. I want to dig into each of them. So you talked about inbound versus outbound, right? And I hate to call referrals inbound because obviously you work very hard to nurture those relationships to create the referrals, and you do a great job for your clients, which therefore creates more referrals. But this was something that jumped out to me on the phone the other day, and you just kind of passed on it there real quick, was you guys primarily target companies with over 50 employees, and you primarily go after things that are a little bit more complicated, which is probably the opposite of what most of the people listening to this do, right? If I know most payroll companies that we talk to, their average client is 10 employees. They're working in a lot of the same industries over and over again, and they're not going after things that are highly complicated, because that puts you into sort of a different competitive realm when you move up there, right? So talk to me about that decision. How long ago did you guys make that pivot to start moving upstream a little bit, and what does that look like for you?
2.5 years ago or so is when we really, actually, 3 years. It was 3 years, but took us really 6 months to probably get our feet under us in that vertical and in that space. And I think as a founder of a company, I mean, the company is going to go where we lead it, right? So That's just something I've always loved. I mean, I feel like companies in that market are underserved because the expertise is not there. So, try going to a big shop and saying, I'm a manufacturer. I mean, do you think they put somebody on your account that's an expert in manufacturing and understands all the nuances of your business? It doesn't happen. As a smaller provider, we can do that. And we can say, you're going to be paired with our implementation specialist that has implemented 25 other manufacturing companies similar to you. So we do have that ability. Are we there yet? Are we perfect in that aspect? Absolutely not. But we, continue to hack away at that expertise and getting better at those verticals, so that we have a better value prop. As a regional provider, I would argue if I go and I talk to the majority of payroll companies out there in the country that are not the big guys, they're going to, hey, what's your differentiator? Oh man, our service is phenomenal, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
okay, and it sounds just like everybody else. So, I mean, we get back to you fast. Our people, man, they love our customers. I could, write a script, hand it to everybody, and they'd be like, how did you tell my company's story so well? It's
Right.
because you're just like everybody else, right?
That's it.
So, for us, service is surely a differentiator. It has been. I mean, our slogan externally and internally is "You're never just a number." So that's to our customers, but it's also, I say, internally to our employees. Our team is never just a number to us. I mean, everybody's voice matters, and we build something through collaboration. But it's only one part of the story, right? You're never just a number. Okay, what does that mean? Well, that means we listen, we learn, we get to know you, and we deploy solutions that ultimately help you and your business be more successful. How do we do that? Well, we have experts that understand your industry. We have experts that care to ensure that that product is delivered to you and it's configured and set up properly, versus kicking you out of implementation, and that product was delayed and it never gets done.
Right.
I mean, we're winning business in the mid-market from, the pays of the world because general ledgers were never set up.
Right. Yeah.
And they kicked us out of implementation, and now they say it's going to be an extra implementation fee to get it done. So our team is like, no, we've got to get that product up and running before we spin them out of implementation. So
Awesome. So I know we've got a lot of folks listening that, once we were kind of talking about this, and when we first jumped on sales, they don't maybe have the best built out sales process or team internally, or maybe the background, right? You mentioned your 8 years of prior experience for Fortune 1000 selling, and kind of bringing that expertise and knowing how to build a team out into the organization. And I'll touch on one thing you hit on there a little bit, going back to the differentiation. You've got to have something to differentiate, and you've really got to litmus test that with people out there, other than just, hey, they're willing to partner with me because I'm local and I'm not ADP and I'm not Paychex. That's not enough to sustain when you hire salespeople and they've got to pick up the phone and they've got to go face to face. That might be enough for you as the business owner, as the only salesperson. But once you start to build out a team, you've really got to be able to differentiate. So let's talk about your team. What does the sales team look like, and talk about your guys' process?
Yeah. So today let me back up about a year and I'll talk to you about our sales team then. Okay. So we went through a few iterations of the way we go to market. And we went through a little bit of a transition, probably 6 months ago or so, and restructured our team. So we've, in our genesis, had small business sales teams, and we've now exited that business, but I'll talk a little bit about how we structured that. I mean, we were looking at the time for, somebody straight out of college that we could bring in and train to go sell small business. And I say small business, they're 25 employees and under. It's pretty transactional. Companies are looking for what you said, the local provider where they can talk to the owner. They can, they've got these pieces that matter to them because they're a small business too. So the pitch is, hey, we're just like you. We're just like you. We have the same challenges you do, and we're here to be a great partner for you for the long haul, right? So, we built that small business team to, at one point we had 5 small business sellers in the market, going out, feet in the street, focusing on, bringing companies in the door. We had at that point in time one inside kind of telemarketer, if you will, selling, basically booking appointments for outside. And that was it was a fun model. It's kind of how I was raised. Like when I first got into the business, it was small business. It's what we did. And when we made the shift, and we're still making that shift into more of a major account sell, we started positioning more into like an inside SDR type role that books appointments. So right now we've got a guy inside who's phenomenal, and he's our lead generation and marketing manager, and he is responsible for overseeing our SDRs. And we started an SDR internship. That's actually how we got Tim on the team, through an internship of that nature. So we started an SDR internship, and we run these summer internships with the whole idea of trying to find somebody who's close to graduation that we can then have work inside and internally in the business. And what they're doing is they're profiling companies that are mid-market. They're profiling based on vertical. They're finding out the 5 key contacts, the information that's relative to those businesses. And then they're doing outreach and scheduling appointments right now over Zoom to schedule, with key decision makers in those companies. And then Tim and I are running those mid-market appointments right now. So, it was interesting recruiting for an SDR position in the middle of COVID, right? Because we're coming out of February, March, and these kids are looking for summer internships. A ton of them are saying my internship was canceled or whatever. So we did the internship, and we said, we're going to commit to do it. Like, you're going to be doing school on Zoom. Why couldn't you operate a sales role on Zoom? So we started it. We were in the office for a little bit, and then everything in Texas blew up. So we moved remote, and we managed that internship remotely over Teams and Zoom. And we had pretty much the exact results that we would expect if they were in the office. So I've talked to a ton of people who are like, well, why would you do an internship? Well, I mean, these kids are disciplined. I mean, we joke about the first contest of the day, and that's who gets here first. So it's the first one to Teams message me, right? Like, hey, how's it going?
Awesome.
But I mean, they're disciplined. They're looking to get experience under their belt. I mean, they're also fighting for, hey, when I graduate, do I have an opportunity here? That kind of thing. And the results were phenomenal. I mean, it was a phenomenal internship, and we're carrying one of our SDRs into a part-time role into his senior semester, and then plan to transition into a full-time SDR role. So
That's fantastic. That's awesome. And you hit on a couple things in there that I think are really important and that I see all the time. And this is in all small businesses, not just necessarily in payroll companies, but you and I have the sort of blessing and curse of the working for some of the 800-pound gorillas prior to going out on our own and being in sales roles. And that's understanding. You said the word profiling, and my ears just perked up, because I know so many people on this call don't even know what that means. And that's taking the time to pick up the phone and call into an account with no other intent than to gain information and to understand if they fit inside your target market. I think one of the things that a lot of people, we'll see this with accounting firms, we'll see it with payroll companies, we'll see it with HR companies, is they think they've got to have a list of, 1 million prospects to be able to get the business that they need. And the more that goes into their CRM, or no list whatsoever. But going back to my days working for a Fortune 500, I had a list of 200 to 300 accounts, and I was expected to sell $500,000 worth of new business off those 200 to 300 accounts. So just think about that for a moment, right? So all you need is a list of 200 to 300 accounts to add $500,000 a year in new business when you do focused selling. So something to keep in mind. And you kind of walked through that flow, and we'll talk about it here in a moment. You hit on the first two steps in the process, right? I always think about every sales process has some variation of this and maybe some different naming conventions, but there's profiling, that's identifying who your prospects are, if they're a good fit for what you do. There's gaining access, which means actually getting in the door and getting the conversation, which you've got SDRs doing right now. Then there's first meetings, we call them first dates. We like to, kind of talk about it like it's, it's often plays out the same way any good romantic relationship would, right? You're out there hunting around to see who the right person is for me, trying to get an intro to that person, trying to call them, trying to do whatever. And then you finally get that first date and see if it's actually, something worth pursuing further. And then, maybe you get the second date, which is the demo or the proposal or the combination of the two, and then the close, and then obviously onboarding them to your services if everything works out. So I think if you don't have those steps outlined in your process, you're doing your company a real disservice. And I know you guys have highly identified processes internally. It's one of the things I admire most about you. But let's talk about how those things have changed. You said that you've had great success even during COVID era here. What's changed as far as outside of working remote? I mean, the messaging, the process, what's changed for you guys?
Well, let me comment on what you just said. And I think the first thing to understand when building a sales team, sales process, is to understand what you're aiming for. So you had a $500,000 nut that you had to go get out of 200 or 300 customers. Most folks I talk to that are, in the independent space, it's like, I hope I sell 300,000 this year, right? For us, our goal is 1 million in new sales this year, and we have a pretty, small infrastructure to pound that million into. So you have to, take into account your implementation resources, but believe me, I'm pretty darn good at blowing up implementation teams because we overload them. But, you have to take into account those resources. Then you have to come up with, okay, what do I want to sell? Let's say it's 1 million. You want to sell 1 million. Okay, how are you going to do that? How are you going to break it down? Is that mid-market accounts? Who's your mid-market seller? Is it small business? Maybe the small business reps are selling 150, 200,000 a year. So you need 5 of them, right? Now, how are you going to feed that engine, right? How are you going to get leads? Where's that list coming from? So just wanted to comment on that because I see that as a challenge of, first setting the number in stone and saying, I'm not going to let this not happen, right? Like, I'm going to sell 1 million in new business this year, right? And that does take us into COVID because, our thing was we committed to sell that much this year.
Yeah.
Right. So, March hits and the world shuts down. Well, we still had a commitment to ourselves and our team to grow the company. So, we didn't take any time off and say, hey, this is, we're in the business. Nobody took time off in the beginning, right? PPP reporting, FFCRA, all that stuff. I mean, we were, knee deep in trying to navigate legislation, and the legislators still don't even know what they did. So, none of us slept for a very long time, but we were able to take that information.
Let me ask you a question. Are you the go-to person in your market for payroll and HR? Are you the first face and name somebody thinks of when they think about who am I going to refer this person that needs help with their payroll and HR support? If not, you might want to look into our executive LinkedIn management service through Underdog Digital. Underdog Digital is a sponsor of this show, and they've seen results such as, I'm looking at one profile right here where over the course of 6 months, they increased views by over 200%, more than 600,000 views on these posts in less than 6 months. Another one, plus 1,000% increase in 8 new conversations in the first 30 days. This is a tremendous service to help you to become the go-to person for payroll and HR outsourcing in your market. They create content for you, engage with other people in your space, send connection requests, and do outreach to generate conversations that do nothing more than create valuable relationships with your target audience. If you're interested in learning more about Underdog Digital's executive LinkedIn management service, go to underdogdigital.co. That's underdogdigital.co.
Compile it, and then our SDRs were booking appointments by saying, hey, we're not trying to sell you anything right now. We understand that making an economic decision right now in the middle of all this economic uncertainty is probably not going to happen. So that's not what this meeting's about. This meeting is about sharing industry insights and best practices that we've learned from your peers and our customers on how to best operate your business from an HR and a finance standpoint right here in the age of COVID. So on Thursday afternoon, we've got 30 minutes booked out for you. Does 2:00 work? I mean, that's what my guys are calling. And they're saying, okay, well, what kind of industry insights? And they'll say, well, there's really 3 buckets or 3 pillars that we're looking at. And they'll go into those 3 pillars. So, number 1 is compliance. Number 2 is, we kind of put it into the doing more with less bucket, because teams are stressed right now and they have, more work to do with less people in most cases. And then the third one is, employee well-being. So what are your employees thinking, right? You can call everybody back into the office and say, we're going to, ignore this thing out there, but, half your employees are going to come back scared, right? So employee well-being, and then, paid time off plans and flex time as people start going back to school. Like, how are you going to support your team that's like literally homeschooling and then trying to, do their job? So, we're just sharing ideas and insights with our prospects that our competitors are not doing, right? Our competitors are, hey, let's get on an hour and we'll preview and show you the system and how it looks. And it's like, come on. I mean, these companies need more right now. They need support. They need guidance. They need insights on how business can be better. How can we do that? And it's amazing, Matt, because at the end of those calls, our SDRs are calling, they're scheduling those, they're doing a Zoom, and, myself, Tim, or one of the SDRs are running those meetings. And it's amazing, at the end of the meeting, people are like, well, wait, can you tell me about Paysphere? Like, what do you guys do? And it's like, oh, I thought you'd never ask, but, it gives us the ability to say, yeah, so here's how we plug those holes, fill those gaps, operate differently than, the company you use today. And again, this wasn't trying to sell you anything, but we do have solutions that can help in these areas. And a lot of times we're getting a swing of the bat.
That's awesome.
So they're saying, well, we actually were looking,
Yeah, right. Exactly. We weren't that happy anyway.
Yeah.
So the messaging is so huge in times like this. I think back to 2009.
Yeah.
I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed back at one of the 800-pound gorillas. I was one of the only people to make President's Club because I was changing my messaging to adapt to the time, right? To be providing value and providing insight and coming out, like you just mentioned. I mean, all these things, I hope everybody picked up on that, are creating value for the person. I've always said, I want that person at the end of the first date to feel like they would have paid me for that time.
Yeah.
Right. So if they felt like that was a valuable investment of their time and they actually would have paid to get that insight, then you've just knocked it out of the park. And when you talk about, what can you do from a compliance perspective? How can you do more with less? How can you help with your employee well-being? I mean, that is valuable information that people need right now. And then, like you said, that once you're kind of creating value for somebody else, it invokes that feeling of reciprocity. And then they want to say, oh, well, okay, you've come out and shared all this free, valuable information with me. Well, like, what can I do to help you? What do you guys have to offer us? So that's fantastic. And I know you've got a great team in place that helps with that. We could spend a whole nother hour talking about, your hiring process and the great folks. I've had the pleasure of meeting several of them, and they're just awesome. So that obviously helps too. So let's
and I would say, I'll speak to that because, as a payroll company owner, I think it's, it's always in the back of your mind, like, how do I get better? How does a company get better? We all have customers that call that say that something didn't go well. I mean, it happens. It's natural. If we were perfect, it means we're not trying hard enough, right? Because we got to try different things and not be perfect. We always talk internally, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet sometimes. But it just takes time to build a great team, and it's taken us time to continue to put the right chess pieces in play, and we feel right now our team is just awesome, man. I mean, and it just our team continues to get better. They get more tenured on our systems and technology, more tenured with the company and our processes, and we're never stopping converting and fixing our processes. I mean, it's like a constant thing, but our team's like bought into that. They're like, hey, we can fix this. We can make it better. So it's one of those things, it just takes time. It takes time to to get the engine moving the way you want it to go. So you got to stay committed and take those early lumps and keep your head up and keep fighting.
Yeah, that's it. And I think back to some of the best leaders I've ever worked for. They've sounded like broken records because it's the same message over and over and over again. Yeah. But over time, you realize why that is, right? You're like, I got it, dude. Enough with that. Like, we understand the core values. We understand the mission. We understand where we're going. We understand why it works this way. But then it becomes second nature for them somewhere along the line. They go, oh, okay, that's why Matt says that over and over again. Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you hit on something I wanted to take a half a step back to. You talked about backing into the number. Once again, as a sales professional and a Fortune 500, it's something that we've both done over and over again to say, hey, what's my annual nut? If I want to sell $500,000, what's my average deal size? How many of those do I need? How many calls does it take me to get an appointment? How many deals close? I kind of back into that whole thing, which is definitely something that I think is a huge gap for folks out there. But I think I wanted to bring it back up because my next question for you was going to be, when did you hire your first sales rep? And I think that the challenge that a lot of small business owners and a lot of payroll bureau owners specifically face is that they never have the free cash, or they don't feel like they do, to hire the salesperson. And so they want to take it home, or they want to invest it in other pieces of the organization. And I personally struggle with this. It's something where we've hit it a couple different ways. So I'd love to hear your perspective on when you hired that first person and what were some of the indicators that you were ready for it.
Man, I would say that I'll rephrase that question to two things. Number one is I'll answer when I hired the first one, but the second one is, when did I hire my first successful salesperson? Okay. Because I came out of a sales and sales leadership career. I know what to look for in people. But you got a small staff. I think we had 5 employees. Actually, my first salesperson that was successful was like employee number 6 or something.
Nice.
So we didn't have a big org structure. So you're not going to go to one of the big guys and recruit some stud to come work for you when you got they're looking at your implementation team and they're like, that's like half a person. Like I could drown them tomorrow, right? With deals. So I think it took us 3 tries to get to, hire the right person to sell small business at the time, right? And it's much easier to hire a salesperson and to sell small business and financially do it. And reason being, because they start eating their own dog food very quickly, right? Within really, by the time you pay out commissions, the customer should have paid for themselves, because you've got, commissions. It's not like you're paying commissions immediately. So it's usually at the end of the month after the customer processes. So that's 16% of the year, right? So you've accumulated and billed and collected 16% of the total annualized billing. And in most cases, we're paying upfront for that annualized revenue. So if you're paying 10, 15, even 20% of total annualized revenue, you've almost got that back in your pocket. So you're only at risk the base salary, right?
Yeah.
Which being at risk the base salary means I'm willing to, number one, take that risk. You got to be willing to say, I'm willing to lose are you willing? Somebody asked me this a long time ago. All right, you hire that person, Matt. Are you willing to lose $10, $12, $15,000? You got to be comfortable with that.
Yep.
Right. And then you got to put processes in place to make sure that person's successful. So how do you support them? How do you have relationships of your own, I'm sure. How do you blend them into those? How do you help them get early wins under their belt so they can be successful and minimize that ramp time, right? So
Absolutely.
If you can get through those first 60 days and that person's performing, then they're going to pay for themselves. And then your commission risk, you're paying commissions after you've already collected it. And I understand there's a difference between gross and net. Your margin on it is not going to be there, but you're building that team, right? And you're starting to build some structure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you hit on something that I think is really important in there, and that's that ramp time and understanding what you're going to get and when. I think people bring in a salesperson with no infrastructure whatsoever for them. 60 days in, they haven't closed a bunch of business, and they're going, what's wrong with this guy? or this
Yeah.
girl, and that's
Yeah.
just not the way it works. And you have to also, if you're looking for somebody to come in and build out your sales program and processes, you better be paying a premium, and you better move back those dates of what you're comfortable with them closing deals on, because
Yeah.
that's doing two things at once, right? That's doing sales leadership and sales at the same time, and that's not a
Yeah.
recipe for success. Um,
And
one,
I would,
go ahead.
and I would say, I feel like I cut you off, but
No.
just to comment on that about if you're hiring somebody to give sales structure, I would always try to get that sales structure built, maybe use a consultant or somebody outside to help you if you've never done it before, but you're going to build that sales structure and then you hire somebody to run your sales structure. I'm not a believer in hiring somebody to come in and create sales structure, because I want a leader to be judged on performance to the plan, not to create the plan, right?
Yep. I agree
Unless that,
1,000%.
unless that's in the first 30 days. Like, hey, I expect you in the first 2 weeks to have this plan together and be executing by week 3. I mean, that's a different story, but it's much easier to say, hey, here's our plan. I expect you to execute on it versus I need you to come build the plan.
Well, to your point, you could do it a lot cheaper by hiring a consultant to come in and build out a process for you. I realize that not everybody listening to this is a sales professional. Not all sales processes are built for the payroll industry, but I guarantee you can go out and find somebody to help build you that out before somebody else shows up. And I will say that your early hires, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this, you can teach them sales or you can teach them payroll industry. You can't teach them both. And especially your first couple hires, because if you're trying to do both, teach them our industry and teach them sales, it's just the road is too far. You have to be very patient and understanding that it's going to take double the time because you're teaching them double the concept.
Yeah, and you're going to be selling with that rep, right?
Yeah,
If
every meeting.
If they don't know the industry, every deal, and you're going to get frustrated because like, why am I paying this guy commission? I'm closing all his deals.
Yeah,
I mean, that naturally happens, but it's one of those things. If you continue to stick through it, it'll eventually pay off as long as that person is disciplined and they're working hard and they can actually, if they can move somebody through the sales process, right? If they can move them through the process, then you can teach them all the other stuff.
Yeah. And the good thing is if you're patient, it doesn't take that much for these people to pay for themselves, to your point. It's just you've got to be able to be patient, have a system and a process in place, and be able to execute on that process, which brings me into one last thing. I know we're coming up on time here, but what metrics do you guys track and how do you track them? What are you looking at when it relates to your sales?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing we're tracking are first appointments. So how many first appointments did you have this week? And then we look at the pipeline from the standpoint of what stage that deal is in. Okay, so a first appointment is typically a needs and discovery meeting. Sometimes it's a precursory to that. I mean, maybe it's hey, we just want to get to know your business and get to know the key players, and then we'll have a follow-up discovery that we get everybody in the room. And again, we're selling mid-market. In small business, you're combining all this stuff. When I started selling small business, we were doing a discovery, a presentation, a pricing, and a close all in the same meeting. And you're blowing through it, and you're like, hey man, this is going to be a $2,000 a year spend. I mean, this is not a big decision. Like $200 a month. Come on, like, is it something you want to do or not? But in the mid-market space, we're tracking initial appointments. Did we get a needs and discovery meeting completed, which means we actually know enough to be able to do a configured demonstration for them, and then as well be able to price it. So then the next stage is a demo completed stage, and we use Salesforce.com to track all those. And then the last stage is if the deal's in negotiation. So have we priced it? And then we look at times between stages. So on a weekly basis, I want to talk to my reps about what did you move into the pipeline this week? So that comes from first appointments, but it's really going to be who did you do a needs and discovery meeting with, right? So if I've got, Salesforce report up, I'm looking at whose stage moved to needs discovered, and then who we progressed through the pipeline. So was somebody a needs discovered that we moved to demo completed? So we complete a demo this week, 2, 3, 4, how many demos did we do? And then how many deals did we price? And then how many that we priced last week moved to close? So we're really just looking at those stages, and are we progressing stuff through the pipeline? and are we bringing stuff into the pipeline? So I want to look at what's coming in, what's moving, and then what's going out. I mean, is it a no sell or did we close it?
And how frequently are you guys reviewing that information?
We review it on a weekly basis. Yeah.
Do you do the traditional old small business sales meeting where you get out in front of them and yell and scream and pump your arms and, maybe hit something against the wall?
No.
Anybody who's worked for the majors knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. I have I got a great story about my favorite sales meeting ever. I'll have to tell you sometime, but no, I mean, we in our sales meetings, we're discussing, questions that came up in the prior week from prospects. We're discussing, it's very collaborative. We're trying to discuss strategy and execution. Those pipeline meetings is a weekly one-on-one meeting, and it's a pipeline review.
Right.
And it's not designed to, beat somebody up over the pipeline. It's designed to say, who can we move in? If you're struggling with that, maybe we need more partners. Maybe we just need more cold calls. I don't know. Yeah. For me, I'd go try to find people that will refer me business, but so we're looking at what's coming in and what's progressing, and we're just trying to provide some help. Hey, it looks like this deal stalled after the demo. Have you been able to do pricing? Who are the key players over there? Oh, it was referred by so-and-so. Well, just an idea, give that referral partner a call, ask them what the feedback from the customer was, see if you can lever back in there, and let's get this deal, moving, or let's take it off. Right.
Well, and that's a pretty common mistake I see folks make, especially the small business owners when they hire the sales professionals, is they don't want to, air quotes, micromanage them. So, I don't want to have to sit down with you every week and review your pipe. Well, that's okay. They're going to underperform.
Yes.
And it's just your job is to do exactly what you just described. And my thought process on it is always this: I want to remove obstacles and help to accelerate the velocity. Like, as the owner of the company, when you interject into a deal, you're going to help it to move faster, whether that be helping the rep or whether that be reaching out to the customer, whether that be on an appointment or do it wherever you need to plug in to help it. You need to be willing to do that because ultimately it's the best for everybody involved. So,
yeah, I hear that all the time of like, I don't want to micromanage. And what I just described was managing.
Exactly.
It's not
managing
micromanaging.
To a number. Yep. That's it.
I mean, I'm not calling reps every day and asking like, hey, what's the status of this deal? If I talk to a rep every single day, it's because we're talking about deals, and they're typically calling me to say, hey, I just got out of this meeting. It was awesome. Do we have this? Can I get this? Hey, we need a marketing piece because they're really excited about this one product. It's collaborative and it's working with them. It's not, hey, what'd you do this morning?
Right.
Hey, it's 10 o'clock. How many calls you make? I mean, that's micromanaging. I hire adults and expect them to be disciplined and act like adults. And, part of that is they got to build a pipeline. We're going to review it because that's, the gauge of which, we all measure salespeople by is, are they closing business?
That's it.
Right. So we'll look at the pipeline. I'll help you close deals and we'll keep moving them in and out. If I don't look at it, it's not going to happen a lot of times, right?
That's it. If it's not in Salesforce, it never happened, right?
I heard
that. All fantastic nuggets, man. And I think that's critical of just if you're gonna hire a sales rep, you're gonna make that investment and you're comfortable losing that 20 grand, that 15 grand, whatever it is. Well, you're certainly going to have to put some time into it. It's not an investment that you just throw into the market and hope for the best. It's like any other investment you make. You've got to keep an eye on it, do everything you can to nurture it along, and it will show tremendous results if you do. But you've hit on something throughout it. I know this is something that you're tremendous at, and that's just the processes, right? Just having processes in place. Like, your reps are not surprised when they sit down with you weekly. Like, this is not some new thing that all of a sudden popped up out of nowhere because they were underperforming. It is something that happens every week with every rep on the team and has for a long time. And so it's about creating those processes.
It's part of the interview process. Hey, we're going to sit down weekly and review your pipeline and talk about any challenges you have, what you need, what obstacles are in your way. And like you said, it's my responsibility to remove obstacles and help you close deals because we all want more business. So it's just part of the interview. Like, this is the way we run our, we have a sales meeting every Monday morning, and it's a team collaborative event where we're talking about how we can get better, improve, and close more deals. And then weekly, we're going to review your pipeline together. And, it's just an expectation.
That's awesome. Well, we've covered a lot here today. I think the big takeaways for me are, one of the things I've loved about your company, and I know that we do a lot of the same, is just developing a culture of growth of the individual, of the company, of just understanding like, hey, when you come here, you're going to grow as a person and the organization is going to grow, and you've got to want to be a part of that. Like you just talked about, setting those expectations from the jump, being willing to make that commitment both financially and time-wise to the success of the sales of the organization. So many people are just reliant on the same old CPAs kicking over the same old business year in and year out, until maybe what happens next year when that Paychex rep goes in and sells them on why they should refer all their business over to them, and then you get pushed out of the way. So having some control over your funnel, which you can't do in a referral only environment. And then, of course, processes, which are near and dear to my heart. So those are things that without them, they're the kind of backbone of the business. Go back to books like The E-Myth and things like that, where you just talk about, hey, I want to manage the process so that my people can use their creative talents and the things that they do well to focus on things that aren't rote tasks and be able to provide that value in a more personalized way. So this has been awesome, dude. Really appreciate it. Where can everybody find you? Where can everybody learn about Matt and Paysphere?
Yeah. So find me on LinkedIn, Matt Umholtz. Go to our website, payspherepayroll.com. Those are probably the two best spots to find me, but I'm active on LinkedIn. So that's probably the best place to connect with me. And if you want to connect, you have sales questions, you want to ask about sales structure, you're thinking about making that first hire, just give me a buzz. Like I'm happy to talk through it with anybody out there that needs help. We're on this together. I view us as not competitors in the market. The competitors that we have the big red and blue logo, and they're publicly traded. So as independents, we're not competing against each other. Even if we see each other in the market, I truly don't view us as competing against each other. We're all out trying to fight, the big gorillas that collectively have over, 1.2 million customers, right? And I just want 10% of those.
That's right, man. And I couldn't have said it any better myself. And that's fantastic. And I can attest to Matt as a man of his word. He has helped me out so many times, and I appreciate it all the time. And it was awesome to connect with you today, brother.
Yeah. Take care, bud.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed that episode, please share it with someone else who might enjoy it and learn from this. And also, please rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast player. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And also, don't hesitate to reach out with other topics you'd like to hear more about. Thanks so much.